And at the same time, I'll bring up the elephant in the room, which is that yes, we have this goal of lifelong music making, but is it something we've actually achieved? Because when I talk to people out in the music teaching world, I get numbers like 90% of students after music lessons never touch their instrument or sing again. So I'm here to say, yeah, we need to do something about that. And the topic for the day of curriculum models, I'm happy to say is something that can do just that.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're glad to be back with you again this week. Oh, so Kathryn, now we're back in the swing of things. We're almost through January. How you feeling?
Feeling good, feeling good. This is kind of the harder part of the year. Sometimes it just kind of gets, I don't know, but I also just kind of try to focus on the joy that happens during the day to get me through, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
Well, I guess it's different in the college world just because we're like starting new in a way because we have new classes and it's nice to kind of be into that new groove and just now's the time where I'm thinking like, okay, so these brilliant ideas you had for this next semester, are they working? And there's that kind of thing, and it's that reflection piece that I've been focusing on. And that actually was kind of perfect timing for today's interview because our guest Merlin talked so much about the importance of reflection.
Yeah.
We had Merlin on, what was it, back episode 85, I think we said, to talk about reflective partnership teaching. So when he reached out and said, hey, I've been working on some new stuff, it was really perfect timing.
Yeah. Really, I mean, again, the power of what one teacher can do when you reflect on your own work. And I think the important part that he shared was give yourself, it's not going to happen overnight. Like give yourself a lot of time to reflect, ask questions, find some data if possible of like, am I making a difference? If I'm not, I pivot. I don't throw everything out, but I just make one little change. It's just so important when you think about it.
And it's exciting to think about it in terms of curriculum. We don't really talk about curriculum on this podcast much, but when he kind of describes curriculum, he talks about how what we're looking at, how we're approaching what's happening in our lessons, what's happening with our students. And I think it's just really valuable. So I don't know. I'm always inspired after talking to Merlin, and today was no difference. Before we get to today's interview, if you're ready to make powerful shifts towards student-centered teaching, explore the Pass the Baton Coffee Club. Members get an exclusive deeper dive audio extra and a Reflect and Act PDF download after every episode, plus access to our full resource library.
For more personal support, our premium tier offers direct access to Kathryn and Theresa in a private Voxer group. Visit buymeacoffee.com/passthebaton to learn more and join.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're so excited to have a returning guest on the podcast today. Merlin, welcome back. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Theresa. It's great to be here. And Kathryn, great to see you as well.
Yeah, so for our viewers, episode 85, go ahead back and listen, or if you haven't. But can you just, for people who haven't listened or it's been a little while, can you remind us, like, where are you in the world of music education?
Yeah, well, I'm in the world where I'm at the 48-year mark of teaching is where I'm at.
Awesome.
Nice.
I've been a private studio music teacher for 48 years. I'm the founder of Teach Music 21C, which is it's a community that's focused on professional development. And the 21C is all about 21st century teaching strategies. That's what that's all about. But what I'll say about my 48 years of teaching is that my teaching has evolved significantly. And that didn't happen overnight. And I like to think that there were certain things that took me an entire decade to find out if it was working. And if it wasn't working, it could take another decade to see if my plan B was going to deliver the deliverables that I was looking for. So I've been around for a while, and I've watched and talked and listened to lots of teachers, classroom and studio teachers as well. And it's just a great pleasure to be here today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And remind us, where are you in the world as far as location?
Yeah, so I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, um, which is a thriving city in Western Canada. Lots of things happening here. A wonderful place to live.
Awesome. Very good. Well,
Yeah.
thank you again. And again, welcome back. We're so glad that you're here and you're going to, continue to talk to us about this music education thing. So while we have a specific topic for today, we're going to kind of back up and say, why are we even, having these conversations about music instruction and music education?
Yeah, and Teresa, I think this is a really important beginning point to ask the question, what are we hoping to accomplish? And I know when I asked that my question that 48 years ago, I had a list of things that I wanted to get done, all the technical things, skill set things that I wanted my students to get done. And then there was a certain point where I kind of transitioned and I went, yeah, that skill set's all really good, but what are students going to do with it? And I really focused on the notion of lifelong music making. That during music lessons, whether they're in a classroom or that's the one-on-one studio, that we're really sowing the seeds for lifelong music making. And why are we doing that? Because music making nurtures our inner self like well, I won't say like nothing else, but I will say it nurtures our inner self in a way that supports our personal well-being. It supports who we are. It can be a challenge. It can be a distraction. It can be entertainment. It can be all of those things. So I'd like to just kind of identify that that's a great starting point. And at the same time, I'll bring up the elephant in the room, which is that yes, we have this goal of lifelong music making, but is it something we've actually achieved? Because when I talk to people out in the music teaching world, I get numbers like 90% of students after music lessons never touch their instrument or sing again. So I'm here to say, yeah, we need to do something about that. And the topic for the day of curriculum models, I'm happy to say is something that can do just that.
Awesome. Yeah, I find that statistic is very true. That, and whether it's in a private lesson setting or in a school-based ensemble setting, that as soon as they kind of graduate out of that, it becomes a thing of the past. Right. Oh yeah, I took piano lessons once. Oh yeah, I was in band once. But it's not something that people continue. And so that's interesting to think about. We spend all of this time working on it, but what are the students getting out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, and what are they carrying forward? And it tells us also what happens during that time when they are taking music lessons, because maybe the conversations about what the future could contain never happen. But I also think it's something about what about the conversations of exploring beyond the performance demands of the instrument or the voice, beyond the content demands of all this material? What is this experience actually doing? I'll just tell you, I have this wonderful event in my studio. It's called a chill out concert. And you might think, oh, students are going to play music for people to chill out too, but that's not what this concert is at all. This concert is where students play music that they routinely chill out to for themselves.
Oh,
Now, you
wow.
can imagine my thinking, oh, when I first implemented it, are my students even chilling out to music in the first place? I had to find that out. And it was, of course, yeah, some students were already doing that, but some students really just thought, oh, no, no, no. Music lessons are just about getting ready for the next lesson and for the concert or for the exam that's coming up. Dr. Thompson, you didn't tell me that I could have this chill out experience. So even that, are we nurturing things in this educational environment that have a resonance in students' home everyday life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes down to, you were saying how when you first started teaching, you had your goals. And I know for myself, when I did too, I had my goals, but they were my goals.
Yes.
They all had I in them,
Yeah.
and it didn't have a lot to do with the humans who were in the room with me. And that's something that it took a long time for me to realize that, sure, it's one thing for me to have my goals, but what are their goals?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. Maybe even too, like I am a music teacher. I naturally sought out music for different reasons, like you're talking about. So sometimes, like, does it even occur to me that others don't do that? Right. But they don't. But as a teacher, it's good to recognize those things. Like not every child is going to think to do that. Right.
Yeah, a
So
lot, a lot of times, children are waiting to be invited into these experiences.
Mhm.
And part of our job, we have the job of kind of anticipating or sharing or welcoming students into that
Mhm.
place. It's not just about passing on skills and knowledge. I like to think part of my job is really to open doors that students might not find on their own. And not all those doors are concerned with skills and knowledge. Some of those doors are just concerned with everyday life.
Mhm. Yeah.
okay, well, you've got us curious. So what are the four curriculum models that you're
Yeah.
talking about?
So for people who have never heard of curriculum models before, yeah, this is not a topic that you will never understand. It's a topic that you will understand pretty clearly in about 3 minutes of explanation.
Awesome.
And because a curriculum model is just a way of how teachers organize three things: experiences, materials, and repertoire. And so, with those three things, we take students from one level to another or from one experience to another. And the four curriculum models are, and they're not all unfamiliar. Actually, one of them is going to be very familiar for you already. But the four of them are a teacher led curriculum, a student led curriculum, a shared curriculum, and a neurodiverse curriculum. So right away, I'm hoping that you recognize the teacher-led curriculum is the one that we've inherited. It's the one,
Mhm.
Theresa, that you were talking about, that you come into the classroom, you say, yeah, I've got my goals. So here we go. So the teacher-led curriculum is the one that we've inherited from the previous generations of music teachers. It's the one that we know really well. And because we know it so well, we're just jumping ready to get it into action. But if we look at those statistics that we were talking about before, that teacher-led curriculum might not be the best way to get that lifelong music making thread in place. And that's where I'm really have focused on these other three. Student-led, which is then shifting things over from the teacher leading the way to students leading the way. And you might think, how is that even possible? But here's my three examples. The adult who returns to music lessons after many years of not playing and says, I only want to learn these pieces. I never had time to learn them when I was a kid. I want to learn them now. So they want to lead the way on that. The next one is a teenager who may have had a couple of years of music lessons and now is saying, yeah, I think I'm done with Dr. Thompson's suggestions. I have these things from whatever, K-pop or Billy Joel or whoever that I want to explore. And I'll also even make sure that I mention the beginner because I've had beginners show up in my studio who, when I said, oh, here are the first three pieces of it, well, they struggled through them for 3 months until we got to Christmas. And when I said, oh, we're doing a Christmas concert, suddenly 5 Polish Christmas carols that they knew with their family became such an incentive that I went, how is it that in one day this guy learned five Christmas carols and in 3 months learned only one piece from me? Switched over to a student-led curriculum right there. I'll go on just one more. I'll talk a little bit about the shared curriculum because, of course, it is that blending of both.
Mhm.
It means that teachers bring in a framework. We bring in our goals for sure, but we also recognize clearly that without including students' choice, we may not get very far with our curriculum that we've set out so well.
Mhm.
So this shared curriculum is really a wonderful adventure. And it is the shared curriculum for me that's my basic operation, but I do, when I need to, pivot to a teacher-led situation if we're preparing for an exam, or a student-led situation if somebody wants to just spend 3 months, or if I need to open up the door to that neurodiverse curriculum where students are requiring a different kind of working through experiences and repertoire.
Yeah. My head is, all of the things are kind of spinning in my head because I want to know more about the neurodiverse one for sure. And I'm thinking about this, the teacher led, and I'm gonna poke some holes and ask questions about that soon. Yeah, I guess what direction do you think it's best to go next? Do you want to tell us more about neurodiverse, or should we dig into one of the other ones?
Yeah, well, so with neurodiverse students, we're looking
Yeah.
at students who have mental or physical, yeah, I'm not sure what the correct word is, but their
Mhm.
capacities are limited. And that
Mhm.
could be someone with autism, dyslexia, ADHD, students, OCD also comes in as well. And my student, I'll just, flag my student Rachel, who had challenges with her hands. Her hands didn't operate the same way that other kids' hands operated. So it meant that in order for her to be successful, I needed to shorten things up. The left hand
Mhm.
only did ostinatos. We never did complicated left hands with her. It just wasn't going to work. So with a neurodiverse situation, teachers may be looking at that framework that we had before. We might most likely are looking at what are students' interests, and we're finding ways to match that to how students can progress through the various, what will I say, developments that are going to take place.
Yeah. Very, very, very student centered. You're
Yeah,
looking at the student to work through what's going to serve their needs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the four curriculum models, I will emphasize, they're not places that you stay permanently. It's not like stay in Sheridan, you never go anywhere else. My students who do upper level exams, they need me to take charge
Mhm.
because there's too much material they don't know on their own. But here's what happens because they know about a shared curriculum, and because they know about the student-led curriculum and their own choice, they are not happy about 8 months of me just telling them what to do. So my typical plan is 3 weeks teacher-led stuff. Fourth week, no exam material, nothing from me, only things from them. And you might think, oh, but Merlin, that's going to really wreck up your strategy for getting them ready for the exam. But here's what we know from neuroscience and learning is that changing things up and not doing things for a period is a great way to test to see if that learning was secure enough to last till you take it up again.
Yeah. I think that's what we were talking about before we started recording. My sense of like, you've got to get you've got to get to hear what your student is thinking, right? And that helps you understand where what they perceive, where they think they are. And then like I have met so many times when I hear them and I realize, oh, there's a hole in the learning. Like I didn't explain this, or we need to go here next, or whatever. But yeah, if you don't hear back from your students, that's so important to how you're going to then write the formative assessment to how you're going to teach continue, or is it time for me to step back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just brings us back to our last conversation, which was on reflective partnership teaching, which is just this whole notion of how are we partnering with our students in
Mhm.
reflective processes? Because we all have to recognize that, yeah, students have their own reflective processes as well, and they get really good at reflective processes the more we use them. And the more we bring them into that, invite them into that process, the less we involve them. It's kind of like the workshop that I got to about 15 years ago, where I asked students how they knew when they played well, and they said when their teacher tells them. Uh, well, okay, that's good. But how does that relate to? I'll just go to lifelong music making, right?
Yes.
So if I go
Yep.
to there, yeah, it goes well. Yeah, maybe if the teacher's only telling you what to do all the time, that lifelong music making isn't going to take place.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. You had me thinking for a moment as well. We were talking before hitting record about grading, and it's the same idea. If a student says, well, I know I did well because I got an A,
Right.
that's not helpful,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but to bring us back to the idea of lifelong learning. So that's our goal. We say that's our goal. It's not always happening. We acknowledge that. The statistics tell us that that's not all happening. So how are these different models related to that idea?
Yeah, so what I've noticed is that and I'll go back to that master apprentice teacher-led model,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so teacher heavy and because we don't make those meaningful connections to students' everyday musical lives. Yeah, we miss out on a whole bunch of things because it's most likely what happens in students' everyday musical lives that's going to be the continual momentum
Mm-hmm.
for keeping things going. We like to think that we can find the perfect framework that's always going to have the pieces that students want to learn. But my experience has been that just never happens. And it explains why if you go to a music teacher conference, there's always somebody there saying, "Oh, here's the latest pieces that we know your students are going to love." And you get them and you take them home and you go, yeah, but why did it only work with half of my students? Why didn't it work with
Right.
all of them? So what works with all of them is this notion of student's choice. And
Mm-hmm.
it's with that student's choice, which comes from either the shared curriculum or the student-led curriculum, that's the one that's really going to keep this agenda closer, getting to that lifelong music place.
Yeah, that that makes sense.
I think maybe I wonder if a listener would be wondering then, how do you know when to switch from you as a teacher? How do you know when to change to different models?
Yeah, so that's interesting. And I would say it is again student driven. And just to give you an example of from my studio, so if you saw a class picture of my student, you'd see Peter standing next to me. Grade 9 in junior high, only does student-led things now. When he started with me as a beginner, we did a shared thing. And through that, I was really able to get to know him. But when he got to junior high, he just kind of said, "Yeah, Dr. Thompson, I'm not so interested in your agenda anymore." And he has a ton of things that he wants to explore and the confidence to bring those things in. So Peter's on the one side, and you'll see Nina. She'll be standing on the other side. So Nina's in grade 8. She also started with a shared curriculum, and I've got to know her very well through that. In junior high, I thought, Nina, would you like to switch to just choose pieces for yourself all the time? And she said, no, Dr. Thompson. I really appreciate it because you find pieces for me that I could never find on my own. So it's the context, it's the student that's giving me the guidance as to what we're going to do the next. I'll go one more student, or maybe two more. Um, Peter. Yeah, so Peter in grade 11 decided that he wanted to do upper level RCM exams and do a couple of competitions. So it meant switching to a teacher-led situation. But as I explained, we had this 3 week on, 1 week off thing going on. And during the summer months, we did no exam work at all. We only did his own things. Fourth one, I mentioned my student Rachel with this, things with her hands. So right from the very beginning, shared curriculum, but quite quickly I became aware that there was this physical challenge for her that meant that I was going to have to do things differently. I wasn't going to give up my framework. I still keep my framework, and I wasn't going to let go of her student's choice. So in each case, you could see how this is
Mhm,
always, it boils down to the student.
Yeah.
mhm. I think that's something we say a lot too, is just we give the offer choice to our students, and yet we as teachers still have our must-haves,
Right.
right? We know the instruct we we've been doing this for a while. We know what they need, but of course we want to also kind of put both of those things together, what the student is interested in and thinks they want, what's their next, what they say is their next step, but then also what we know is good instruction.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say, sometimes when I talk about the student-led curriculum, teachers get worried. They go, but well, what's my job? Like
Right, right.
if the student is bringing, but our job is to connect students with everything that they can't find on their own.
Yeah.
And typically that is the basics. It's not like it's something so complex like a tierce to Picardy or, how to play a Mozart trill. It's the basics of tone production. Those are the things that students will most likely struggle if they try to work out on their own. And we provide the shortcuts in part. I'll say we also provide the revisiting because the basics are things that we need, whether it's tone production or keeping the beat or being expressive while you play. All of those things are the basics. They can disappear so quick. I'm always shocked that, I'll just give my student Peter as an example. So you think the basics would be all 100%. And yeah, they are, I would say about 80%. But there are occasions when he comes in, I think, is this your first piano lesson or what is this? But it speaks to my job. My
Mhm.
job is to continually revisit these things and to engage students in ways that are engaging for them so they feel like they're part of the process.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm glad you addressed that because I could see probably not our listeners because our listeners are mostly on the same same page, but people thinking, but if it's completely student led, their posture and their playing technique and all of this, I don't think that's the case. We're still there to remind them of those things and to help them build things. And, we know playing technique is a musician health issue. It's not just because we say it looks good. We're trying to keep you healthy for lifelong
Yeah.
musicianship. And so those elements are still there.
Yeah.
It's just the students have a choice how they're going to be working through it and
Yeah.
what repertoire they're working on and how things like that. Am I understanding you correctly?
Absolutely. And what I love about students having own choice is that I don't go and find their pieces for them. So yeah,
Mhm.
even, Nina, when she was in grade one, she said she wanted to learn whatever the piece. Well, okay, where are you going to get the music? Does this music arrangement fit your ability to play? And so, I remember also when I first told people about this shared curriculum, they'd say, well, that means I have to find all this music. And we know what's going to happen. You're going to find the best arrangement of Imagine by John Lennon, and you're going to bring it in, and the student's going to take it home and bring it back, and they're going to say, Dr. Thompson, I'm not, I don't think this is a piece I want to learn after all. And your brain's going to explode because you spent hours finding that. So having students find it, well, what happens is they find out what's involved. They find out what's involved in finding pieces for their level, finding pieces
Mhm.
that match their personality. I call it, it's like we never expect Lang Lang and Elton John to go to the music store and bring home the same books of pieces.
Mhm.
And we don't go to an Elton John concert or a Lang Lang concert expecting each one of them to play what the other would be doing on a concert.
Right.
So all of this kind of stuff to give that student ownership of that process. Uh, how do you think that factors into lifelong music making? Well, students who have the habit of going to the music store to
Right.
buy music for themselves, to learn it for themselves without, without any push from teachers, yeah,
Right.
they've got a really important first step in terms of keeping that lifelong music making seed alive.
Yeah. Because otherwise, they're gonna just wait for someone to hand them the music.
Isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I don't hand students music because I do,
Of
but
course.
handing them pieces from my list, not from their list.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure if a student asked you to help them with that process, you could work through it together.
For sure.
That's something that you can help them with. It's not a figure it out on your own and come back and see me when you do. But
Yeah.
you can help them when they need that help. And
Yeah,
I think
and
that's
early on we do that. So I can give you the example of my student Annalise who in junior high for her final concert. So we could see piano lessons are coming to an end. What are we going to do? She said, I want to do a Harry Potter concert. I said, fine. She knew where the music store was. She went. She brought the next week two books, one advanced and one intermediate. She said, Dr. Thompson, can you guide me? I said, that's not going to happen. She went and she came back the next week. I said, so what was your decision? She said, well, the advanced pieces are really beautiful, but they'll take me too long to learn, and I want to do this concert in 3 months. So I'm doing the intermediate pieces, and I went, that's the process I use as well. When somebody asked me to play for a concert, I got my list there, I pull stuff out. Oh yeah, no, that'll be 5 years to play to learn. No, no, I gotta find things that I can do and get ready in the period of time that's available. So looking at that, I just say, yeah, here's a student who's done something really important.
hmm
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And do you have situations where students make a choice that maybe isn't the choice you would have made?
Oh, very often the students bring pieces that are beyond their level of playing.
Hmm.
A typical one for me is beginners who want to play Furlies by Beethoven.
Yes.
So I've made an arrangement of the first page of Furlies, which a beginner with 1 year of lessons could handle. But here's what I've discovered with difficult pieces. Students may get farther with a difficult piece than I anticipate. And learning one line from a difficult piece
Mm.
may be all that they need to satisfy
Oh.
that learning drive at that moment. Learning just the chorus from a Billy Joel song may be all they want to. They don't want to learn the whole introduction, which goes on forever,
Right.
and the left hand is impossible to play. The chorus is all they want to do. So that for sure, is this notion that students can bring pieces that are beyond their level. So I'm just going to be open to, let's see how far you get. Let's see if, well, are you happy with one line or one page? And then if you really insist on playing this piece that's beyond your level, let's find a way to do it safely. So
Mm.
typically for pianists, I'm talking about soft hands, about soft arms, about using my energy well, about not straining my body in any way. So just to be aware of that conversation, playing La Campanella for a couple of my students, yeah, that would be the end of their technique right overnight. But having fun with that first page and just, getting your fingers to touch those places that Liszt so beautifully came up with, yeah, who wouldn't want to explore that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That makes me think of Kathryn. You often will say, like, what can we do?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what so the student brings a piece, it's a little bit beyond their level, but the question is, okay, well, what can we do with this? Maybe we can
Hmm.
learn the right hand, maybe we can learn this and that, instead of shutting the student down and saying, no, this is too much. You are What can we do?
Yeah. And then there are on occasions when I just say, no. No. Like my student Tian, and she wanted to do the whole piece of Furley's in about grade 3. I just said, yeah, first page, but no, we won't be going anything further.
Yeah.
Grade 6 now. What do you think happened at her last lesson? She said, Dr. Thompson, I think I might want to put Furley's back on the list. And I said, yeah, now is a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I think there is, right? There is a time as a music teacher that and you don't want to get them to the point where they are so frustrated
Right.
that there's going to be a negativity or negative experience, right? And that's important for us to be able to step in and say, no, not yet, you know. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So here's my question. And again, I know, I feel like the listeners of our podcast are many of them are open to a lot of these ideas already, and already doing things this way. But you do professional development. You work with a lot of other teachers. What I'm finding is there are still many teachers who they want to be told what to do so that they can then do that with their students. you know, they want someone to hand them a curriculum to then implement with their students. How do you work with teachers who may have that mindset, and how do we help them be open to the idea of doing a shared curriculum or a student-led curriculum, things like that? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right because it is a big step, the first step. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think about my own journey with this whole process. So the first 20 years, I would say of my teaching, I taught 100% teacher-led things. But I recognized that I wasn't successful with a number of students. And so I started to question that. So the first thing I think for any teacher in shifting to add on a new approach is to recognize where your awareness is coming from. So what worked for me was identifying students who, if I'd done things differently, that it might have worked better for them. So I put it into a personal context, not just a theoretical, here's what you should do in this situation. No, I put it into a personal context. I took a look at my student, I'll just give him a random name, Nathan. And I said, what would have worked better for Nathan? And now that I know about Merlin Thompson's curriculum models, yeah, what conversation do I need to have with Nathan? What words would be good? And it can be just something as simple as, Nathan, I can see that these pieces that I'm putting out for you all the time, yeah, they're pieces that come from me. I'd really like to shift it around because I know that you have a musical persona inside yourself. I know that there are things that you listen to that you never tell me about at home. So over the next while, and I think the words over the next while are really important as opposed to from now on or from
Mm.
today, or I'd like you to come with a huge list of pieces for me next week. So over the next while, let's see what we can do to bring your interest into this whole musical journey that we've got going on. So it's finding the comfortable place to do it. Then it's using the comfortable words to bring it to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I heard you say too is it's okay first to even just think about, like what didn't work this time. So I'm not doing it, there's no step forward yet. It's just like stopping and reflecting, like where was something I could change for this child, right? And that's okay to have that permission of like, it's okay that I didn't get it this time. It's okay.
Right.
But I'm thinking about it and then I'm going to find that way in, right? I'm moving myself forward, which is great.
Yeah.
I know oh, go ahead.
Well, I just say awareness is the first step for anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awareness is not there, and we don't find that place where we can be comfortable with our awareness. Yeah, getting to step two is no, is a real challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think Theresa, I get it with people who it's uncomfortable because it's like, I don't know. So I want this curriculum that's just going to
Mhm.
tell me how to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And that just can't be
Yes. Yeah.
because that curriculum can't be written for the students in front of you.
Yeah.
Right.
I see
It just can't.
that comment with like elementary general music. And then in the ensemble worlds, I see people who just say, well, tell me what repertoire, and that's what I'm going to teach. It's like,
Mhm.
well, then we're just teaching in a tiny little box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear some, just first having that awareness. And I think that applies across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is, for me, the idea. I've used a couple of different ways to talk about this. I've used the expression acceptable tension, which is the notion that, yeah, there are certain things that are going to go really well in my teaching and I'll understand 100%. But there are also things that, for me, are acceptable tensions in my teaching. Things that I'm not 100% in control of. But they're not tensions that are so huge that they're going to destroy me. They're
Mhm.
acceptable tensions. And the other way I talk about it is through structured excellence and messiness. So
Mm.
for me, good teaching involves structured excellence and good messiness as well. Without messiness, well, we may miss out on a whole bunch of things that would have contributed to that structured excellence, but we were so focused on just inching closer and closer towards it that we missed a whole bunch of things. So to get comfortable with messiness, to be comfortable with students coming and saying, yeah, I thought I'd like to learn this piece, but it turns out I don't, and not going, oh, no, no, if you choose a piece, you have to learn to the very end and you can't go on to the next piece. Yeah, so that mindset we've inherited, but no, it's okay to say, yeah, I'm only just going to learn the first line and we're done. We're going to move
Mhm.
on. For me, that's a really great example of, yeah, we've got multiple ways of being successful in our studios. We do have this excellence, and we look to that and we say, yeah, we've got all that, but we've also got experimentation and exploration and curiosity as well. And because we've got those three things, well, actually, the excellence gets better too. Because we know, and again, I'll go back to neuroscience researching, that if you're just inching one step closer to that excellence model, it may take you forever. But if you go off and experiment or use your curiosity or use your imagination, you may find ways to get that excellence to happen that you'd never anticipated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know your world is the private studio.
Yes.
Is there do you have some examples of maybe what this kind of application would look like for an ensemble or for a class, like a classroom of students?
Kathryn, I love that you asked this question because last year I was at the American String Teachers Conference and
Hmm.
sitting in the hall one day and somebody walks by, he's on his way to a presentation. You say, hey, can you tell me who you are? What are you doing? So he came over. I told him what I was doing with curriculum models. He said, oh, well, in this teacher's classroom, he had what he called a student-led situation going on, which meant that his students were choosing the music. His students were even going out and finding arrangements in a classroom setting for this.
Mhm.
Um, and so I asked him, well, the question is, how long did it take you to get that in place? He said, well, it wasn't an overnight process. It was a process of gradually going from, okay, I'll ask the students to choose one piece that we will include in the program this year. So it's that kind of thing of inviting students to do one thing that you're comfortable with. The other place, so I was just delighted to see randomly meeting someone in a conference and he's got a student-led curriculum going on at this point, prefaced by a shared curriculum for a couple of years. But I'll also point to another colleague who I watched her teach a band rehearsal once. And after the band rehearsal, I said, what week are we in? She said, well, week 6. I said, why are you doing the warm-ups? Why aren't the students, why don't you have students leading the warm-ups? She said, I don't know why. I said, could you change that? She said, next class. So the next class came in which, oh, the warm-up today, who would like to lead the warm-up? Can I have a volunteer? And how many kids do you think shot up their arms? Well, 4 did. Um,
Mhm.
2 of them actually had conducting experience. These were kids in grade 6. They had conducting experience. Oh, I shouldn't say conducting. They knew what conducting looked like
Okay.
from the teacher in that classroom and from a band that they belonged to outside of that classroom.
Mhm.
One of the students came forward and said, I don't conduct like Miss So and so. I conduct using the style of my band teacher. It goes like this. You'll know exactly what to do. And she led the warm up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love
So,
it.
very simple thing, just handing over the leadership of that. And I see that's something that could happen for all ages. In a grade 1 choir class, you can say to
Mhm.
who would like to lead the old song today. You can have 3 students do that so that they feel like they're part of the process as opposed to, oh, here's the teacher, next activity, next activity. No, next activity, I need 3 leaders to do it. Next activity, I need 1 leader to do it. Oh, next activity, I'm going to take that on. Next activity, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so fun that you're finding people out and about as well who are starting to do that, and to have the willingness to try it too, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, it
that's
speaks to that focus on lifelong music making that I think
Mhm.
in small, amounts here and there, people are starting to think, yeah, those numbers of the dropouts is overwhelming. What am I going to do about that? And so it's these people who are just, thinking ahead. It's pretty fun to watch. And then for me, because I will emphasize the 4 curriculum models is something that I've copyrighted. I came up with the name, but I only came up with it because I wanted a way to tell people what I was doing in my studio and what I was seeing other people do in their studios as well. And what's been really interesting is how when I talk about curriculum models, certain people in the group will say, now I know what to call that. Now I didn't know how to say shared curriculum. I had just said, no, I've got my agenda and I let my students do things on the side. And it feels kind of like, oh, I'm not sure I should even be doing that. But now that they know there's the word shared curriculum, they go, oh, yeah, I'm a shared curriculum teacher. Yeah, that's it. So we've got a way of identifying ourselves and describing what's going on, and someone else will know what that is.
Mhm.
yeah, that's always so fun when someone goes, oh, I've been doing that, and you're like, yes, that's great. Now we have this thing, we have this language, we can talk about it, and yeah, that's always great. So if someone listening wants that takeaway, something to do, when they walk in Monday morning, something that they want to do with whatever their next class, their next student, what would you suggest as something they can try tomorrow?
Yeah, easy activity for me is the whole what can you pass on to a student in terms of leadership? Do you have a warm-up exercise that your students could take on? Do you have old repertoire that students could maybe be the conductor for that old repertoire
Yeah.
as well? So that's a really easy one to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the classroom situation. For
Mm-hmm.
teachers in a studio situation, yeah. for me, it's finding where that opening is right there already. Finding that student that you'd be the most comfortable with to go
Mm.
into a shared curriculum environment, and then getting those comfortable words out. Some students, when you ask them what pieces would they like to learn, they may be like a deer in the headlights, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
those students may never have been asked for something from themselves. They may have been in school only told what to do. They may have parents who only tell them what to do. They may have friends who only tell them what to do. So those students may step back. So you might need to say, over the next while, let's see
Mm.
what we can come up with together. So yeah, there are really nice small steps, and I would say recognize your own vulnerability,
Mm.
recognize that this is a big step for yourself, and pat yourself on the back after you've got it done. Because quite often it's easy to go on to the next week and the next week, and you're thinking all this time, oh, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? No, keep a note for yourself. I love it. I heard from a teacher last week who'd been keeping a journal of her teaching.
Mm.
She went back and was reading through, and she went, oh my goodness, I thought I wasn't getting anything done. But actually, all the things that I'd said I was going to do, I got them done. Without that reflective process, she was always just thinking, oh, yeah, there's so much to do. Yeah.
Mhm.
I appreciate that you said for the private studio situation to pick one student.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we try to, and I have to remind myself of. Like, I always want to go in and change everything. No,
Right.
just pick one thing and try it with that one student or that one class, reflect on it, and then see what's next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll add, Teresa, I want to add one more layer because I want to add that lifelong music making layer as well. And so for a teacher who's not been conversant in that conversation, I want to just introduce this conversation, which is really amazing. And it's the conversation to have on the day when your student arrives and they're exhausted and you're thinking, what are we going to do? Because we got the recital coming up, or we got this coming up. So on that day, and I'll just go back to my student Angie. She arrived. She said, Dr. Thompson, my brain exploded today. And I said, okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to play old pieces, and to start off with, we're only going to even play the first couple lines, and we're just going to see what happens. Well, playing the first couple lines went well, so we played longer on the next one. We played longer on the next one, and in about 15 minutes, uh, the brain explosion had it gone through recovery. And
Mhm.
so I turned to Angie and I said, you may not have noticed this, but in the last 3 minutes, your energy has returned. And why did that happen? Well, it's because we've been in this musical comfort place for about 12 minutes now. And I can't help think, but how important this experience is for you to take through your entire life. And so that maybe when you get to university and you're living in the dorm and you see all your friends are studying so hard all the time, and you can just see they're burning themselves out. And they don't know that every second day you find your way to the music building so that you can tinkle away on one of the pianos for 15 minutes because it's your rejuvenation. So you're going to be pointing out to them that if they would just go to the music building and tinkle away on the piano for 15 minutes, their studying would go much better after that. So that's an experience you can do easily in the private studio. But I also think it's an experience that it applies to the classroom as well, because there are those days when students arrive. I think there are two extremes: the chaos stream, chaos extreme, and then there's the exhaustion extreme. And on either one of those days, it would be great to just say, let's see what happens when we do old material, whether it's singing old material or playing our most comfortable piece. And to be the facilitator that at the end of about the 12-minute mark, and you might have a student even who's standing by the side, who keeping notes, who's saying, oh, when students came in, they were really exhausted at a level of 2,000. But after 10 minutes, oh, actually the energy level has gone up to about 100. So there's some kind of student involvement in terms of tracking that progression. And then the teacher can use just a few couple sentences to help everyone to notice what happened in the classroom because we were making music.
Yeah. So you're saying we don't have to always just follow that plan. We need to recognize who
Yeah.
walks in our room
Yeah,
and work with that.
yeah.
Yeah. As you were talking about the student, um, the original student, I remember when high school, and don't tell my high school teachers this, I would skip the class before like my AP calculus test, and I would go down to the band room and I'd practice. I just play the piano. I would just sit there because I knew that cramming to study wasn't going to help me. That was not a very good class for me. But if I could calm myself down enough by playing the piano, then I could get through the test.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I see so important about that is that's an awareness you came up with on your own. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine if you had a teacher supporting that. Imagine if you had a teacher who for years had been saying, have you noticed? Have you noticed?
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed how this happens? So that everybody in that band situation or choir situation or
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one music lesson, everyone comes away with that awareness.
Yeah. And that's something that I find it in the university level, we also have to remind our students about because the music then becomes that stressful thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, but it has to be perfect. No, just step back, play something fun. Music is fun. We do this because we enjoy it. Step back and find that. Yeah, it's a very very useful thing.
Yeah. Well, Merlin, this has been so wonderful. And I think something listening to you for during this interview, you are so reflective. And that's such a wonderful piece that we all it just reminds me of like how important it is. Like you talked about your 48 years, that it's, you've spent that time thinking and then giving yourself time to then answer the question, did what I change, did what I do make a difference? It didn't? Okay, pivot, but just that reflective piece is so wonderful. So it's just a refresh. It's so lovely to listen to you talk about that stuff.
Well, thank
So
you so much.
yeah.
And for me, the whole beginning of what skills and knowledge I want to pass on to my students, that's a really great question. But at the 20-year mark, yeah, I pivoted. I didn't get rid of that question, but I added on
Correct.
what will what will I do in the lesson this week that will impact what students are doing 20 years from now?
Hmm.
And suddenly I went, okay, there are a whole bunch of things that I'm doing that are actually going to have the opposite effect on that. Why did that happen for me? I would say pivotal people in my life. So I can
Mm.
point to a conversation with a parent on a certain day. My eyes just went, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. I need to think about that. So
Mhm.
having, hanging out with the right people, I say is yeah, that's a good one for us to all think about. Who can we hang out with that supports us in terms of supporting our reflective process, supporting our curiosity. Yeah, it's really important to have those people. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Theresa, because the opportunity to just talk through these things is how all of these came into shape for myself. These
Mhm.
things didn't happen in isolation. I wasn't off on an island somewhere doing research and thinking all by myself. No, I was talking to my partner, talking to other people, watching people teach and going, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of why we love this podcast because we get to have these conversations and then other people get to listen to them. And I think it's just yeah, it's a good thing. This community is very very important. So if people wanted to connect with you or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Yeah, please do. Please check out teachmusic21c.com. It's a huge resource on that website. Um, Lots of things there. I have a very short podcast series, so I'm only doing 12-minute podcasts. So we just do a jump in, talk, and jump out
Love
again.
it.
So we've got that kind of thing going on, but lots of articles, reflective pieces that really touch on because there's so many layers to teaching. And granted that there are certain layers that are more important than others, but I've also found that certain layers don't work all that well unless you have the other layers in place as well. So please, yeah, visit teachmusic21c.com.
Great.
There is a newsletter that you can subscribe to. It's my way of just a quick inspiration for the week. It comes out on Tuesday morning. I usually have there's a blog with it, and then there will be at least 2 or 3 just quick tips to do for the day, with things that you can hold on to for this week. This last week it was the word thank you. Someone contacted me a while ago. She said, "What do you say when students play a piece?" And I knew she was thinking about, oh, well, what would you say when they play badly? But that's not, I knew what the question was. And I just said, well, thank you is the best way to start off. And she looked at me like it was like, of course it is the right way to start. What did I think? So a little tip like that will come in the newsletter on a regular basis. And if anybody wants to reach out, you can definitely reach me through the Teach Music 21C website as well.
Okay, wonderful. We'll make sure that we have that link right in the show notes so people can click. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. We really appreciate it. I don't know. I knew it was going to be a fun conversation just based on how much we enjoyed talking to you last time. So we appreciate the work you're doing, and thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Theresa and Kathryn, I'm so appreciative of the work that you're doing. And it's these kind of conversations that just, keep us going. So thank you for including me in this conversation.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.